Okay, we are recording. Welcome, candidates and attendees to the Poway Democratic Club's 2020 Candidates Forum. The Poway Democratic Club provides our members with information and opportunities to take action to help promote fair, inclusive, and responsible government at all levels. My name is Amit Asaravala. I am the current club president, and I'll be the moderator this evening. We also have Jana Johnson, our club vice president. She'll be keeping time for the candidates, so you'll see her from time to time lifting up a timesheet to let you know how much time you have left. We also have Carla Hernandez here behind our logo. She's our treasurer, and she's going to be helping manage Zoom. Just as a quick aside, because we are holding another session after this, because of the way Zoom webinars work, if any of those panelists happen to log on early with their special invitee link, they may appear on screen here. Carla's going to do her best to quickly usher them into the attendee area, but we do apologize in advance if that happens, and we will give back time if you're interrupted while you're speaking. This is our second session of the evening. We're joined by the candidates for San Diego County Supervisor District 2. We have Mayor Steve Vaus and Senator Joel Anderson here. We thank you both for taking time out of your evening to join us. Before I hand it over to you, just quickly go over the format for the attendees, and as a reminder to both of you candidates, you'll each have 2 minutes for your opening statements. At the end, you'll have 2 minutes for your closing statements. In between, I'll be asking 10 to 12 questions, depending on time, and you'll each have 1 minute to respond. And if we do have a little bit of time left over, we will take some questions from attendees and that they enter into the chat. The questions were generated by the board, club members, and guests who wrote in over the past few weeks. Though we are a Democratic club, we've tried to be as fair as possible in selecting these questions. We're not trying to do gotchas. We're not trying to tip the balance towards a favored candidate. And we have not shared the final questions with anyone outside of our board. So, all right, so we will begin with opening statements, and we'll start alphabetically. So Senator Anderson, that means that you will have 2 minutes.
Sure, thank you very much. Call me Joel. I've represented Poway for 12 years in the legislature. Every year I had an open house. We invited everybody in the community to come. I think it's really important that when you're an elected official that you listen to everybody. I'm very proud of the fact that I did over 450 bills, joined or co-authored with my Democrat colleagues. If you added all the Republicans I served with, and collectively, I did more individually than they did as a whole together. A lot of people run for office because they want to be in office. I've always run for office because I want to make a difference in my community. And I think that I've done that. Having done all those bills with Democrats, it'd be very easy to sit back and point fingers and not get stuff done. But I chose to engage. And if you ask most of the legislators, the Democrats, they'll tell you that I'm one of their favorite Republicans. And it's because I was always honest. I was always open-minded. I don't have the best ideas, but if a better idea is presented to me, I want to do it because I want to improve my community. So I'll still have those open door policy. I'll still have community coffees. I think it's really important that everybody participate. We had 2,000 young people intern for me in 12 years. There was no litmus test. It was all about community service and what we could do to make other people's lives better. And I'm proud of that. So I'm hoping tonight I earn your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve, over to you.
Thank you. It's been a while since I've been with y'all. 6 years ago, my friend Olga Diaz, council member from Escondido, introduced me at the meeting that was then at Creekside Plaza when I was running for mayor. I'm sorry we're losing Olga from the Escondido Council, but I'm Steve Vaus, mayor of Poway, running to be District 2's next supervisor. I'm honored to be endorsed by incumbent Supervisor Diane Jacob, by the majority of mayors in the county, majority of mayors in the district, majority of council members in the district, and really a bipartisan broad spectrum of leaders countywide. I'm also endorsed by CAL FIRE firefighters, the Deputy Sheriff's Association, and every law enforcement agency in the district. United Domestic Workers, Laborers, Local 89, by SEIU, and by Father Joe Carroll. I think they support me because they've seen that I put people before politics. Now, that means ensuring every neighborhood is safe from crime and wildfire, protecting and caring for seniors and veterans, and prioritizing quality of life with the parks and open space. As supervisor, I'll address homelessness by increasing funding for mental health and addiction treatment and implementing programs increasing housing for the unsheltered. Under my leadership as mayor, we're building affordable housing in Poway for developmentally disabled and soon for senior veterans, investing in renewable energy, expanding recreation facilities, trails, and open space. We're the county's safest city. We balance our budgets and maintain a fiscally responsible rainy day reserve. During COVID, we've served nearly 10,000 meals to vulnerable seniors, provided picnic tables to restaurants, opened our park for socially distanced workout and worship. My family's been in District 2 for 3 generations. And Corey and I have lived in the same house here in Poway for just about 28 years. We've got 4 kids, 6 grandsons. I pride myself on getting things done with an independent, nonpartisan approach, and I'm delighted to be here tonight.
Thank you. All right, so now we begin the questions. You'll each have 1 minute to respond. I'll repeat the question for each of you, and we'll alternate who gets to respond first. So because Joel, you began with the opening statements first, we'll start the questions with Steve. Steve, what do you consider to be the most important tasks and responsibilities of the county supervisor position?
Number one, public safety. Public safety is really a moral responsibility for us. That's not just public safety law enforcement, that's public safety from wildfires. Again, I'm delighted to be endorsed by every law enforcement agency in the district, as well as CAL FIRE. But right behind that, we've got to address mental health issues and homelessness. They're really intertwined. It's personal for me. My sister was diagnosed severe schizophrenic when I was a teenager, and she lived a rough and tumble life on the streets at times. We can do better. We need better mental health services, better housing opportunities. So those 2 things right there in the limited time I have to talk about it. And of course, we've got to see a recovery from coronavirus. So there's much more to talk about, but that'd be it right from the top.
Thank you. Joel, what do you consider to be the most important tasks and responsibilities of the county supervisor position?
Well, I think right now, coronavirus is the top of the list, but prior to that, I would have said homelessness and affordability. You know, I spent 40 years in East County. I grew up here. My kids were born and raised here. It's been a great community. We've always had paths, career paths. People always had the ability to purchase a home or purchase a condo. And over the last decade, homelessness has gotten worse. Roads have not gotten better. The affordability of living here is almost impossible. Now, I turned 60 this year, and most of my friends have to visit their grandkids outside the county because we failed them with affordable or attainable housing. So I think it's really important that we focus on it. And I just finished by saying, in the midst of the hepatitis epidemic in the homeless population, I had done a bill with Jim Bell from I'll take less time next time, but I just want to finish this thought real fast. Jim Bell from Silicon Valley and I joint authored a bill to bring $200 million in mental health money to San Diego County. They spent $3 million of it. They could have triaged the homeless during that epidemic.
We have to end that one there, Joel.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. And I'm sorry, but you're asking very tough questions that I believe that you deserve a meaty answer.
Yeah, if we have time at the end, we'll try to come back to some of these.
Sure.
Okay, let's, you do get the next question to begin with as well. So in a minute, why should Democrats vote for you over your opponent?
Well, if a man promises you the world tomorrow, ask him what he did yesterday. Everyone talks about how they work across party lines. I'm sorry, over 450 bills is a lot of lines I've crossed. So if you want to be solution oriented, then I'm your guy. if you want talking platitudes, then don't vote for me, because I actually want to fix it and make it better. I led the charge on restorative justice in our prisons. I've led the charge on a lot of items that I think most people are surprised. I have a Martin Luther King Day Bridge Builder Award, and then I'm an honorary Tuskegee Airman, but you wouldn't read it in the UT because if I walked in water, they would have reported I couldn't swim. So I'm going to stop here to make up for my bad doings in the previous one.
Okay, thank you. Steve, why should Democrats vote for you over your opponent?
Well, number one, as I spoke about in my open track record, I think I've accomplished a heck of a lot in Poway, keeping it safe, keeping responsible rainy day reserve funds. We're building a community and senior center right now, $10 million. It's ahead of schedule. It's under budget. We're paying cash. I get things done. I'm not a professional politician. I'm not endorsed by any partisan political machine or party. You know, I'm endorsed by leaders from both sides of the aisle and by organizations across the political spectrum. On the progressive end of things, SEIU and United Domestic Workers and Laborers Local 89. On the conservative side, the Lincoln Club and the San Diego Regional Chamber of Commerce. I would suggest if you have any question, call the folks that I work with. Call Olga Diaz, call Mayor Catherine Blakespear, call Mayor Paul McNamara, the Democrats that I work with on the board of Sandag. I think you'll find compelling reasons.
Thank you. Okay, this next question is to you first, Steve. How should county sheriffs respond to Black Lives Matter demonstrations and calls to reduce funding, demilitarize, and ultimately reform policing?
Well, number one, I don't support defunding the police at all. Anything that's going to weaken or diminish our ability to respond is a non-starter. However, I think what's happened to teachers over the years, being saddled with broader responsibilities than simply educating students, that same thing has happened to our law enforcement. You know, there well may be an opportunity to move some of their responsibilities to other providers without impacting public safety. Do some law enforcement agencies have problems? Absolutely. Is there racial profiling in some places? Yes. Terrible and tragic incidents? Yes. Bad actors? Yes. Whenever and wherever there are problems, they should be rooted out, and there should be a national system that prevents bad actors from going and getting a job somewhere else. I think the county's starting to move in the right direction, beefing up the Citizens Law Enforcement Review Board, the Leon Williams Human Relations Commission, but we've got a ways to go.
Thank you. Joel, how should county sheriffs respond to Black Lives Matter demonstrations and calls to reduce funding, demilitarize, and ultimately reform policing?
Well, I actually supported efforts in Sacramento to demilitarize the police. There's no reason for them to have these types of weapons. We live in a free country, and I believe that having the military weapons sends the wrong signal. These should be community police. There's no need to have that. I support the mental health aspects moving forward. We should have more PERT teams. I think right now we have 3 PERT teams for all of San Diego County. We should have 3 or 4 times that many. I supported increasing the money for training for our law enforcement. We keep asking them to do more, but we're not training them to make sure that law enforcement members that are bad eggs aren't weeded out, because no matter who you are and who you hire, there's always going to be some bad eggs. So we need to look at that. But the second thing is, it's a tough job and people need to have the best training so we can hold them accountable. But I don't believe we have to choose. I see the end.
Thank you. Okay, next question goes to you, Joel. What else should the county be doing to help reduce homelessness?
Well, so I brought $200 million into the county. They spent $3 million of it, and the rest got returned to the state. Let's take it seriously. We have some homeless shelters that wanted to expand, and when they went to expand, it took them over 2 years to get a permit. If we say that this is a priority, it has to be demonstrated in our actions. It can't just be us talking about it, feeling good and saying, oh, look, I've done something, I spoke about it. No, I want to see real action that actually lifts people in our communities. There are nonprofits that are doing a phenomenal job. We should get out of their way and encourage them. And I don't want to see the county competing with them. I want to see the county assisting them. But so far, I don't think the Board of Supervisors cares very deeply.
Thank you. Steve, what else should the county be doing to help reduce homelessness?
Homelessness doesn't respect city boundaries, and we need to treat it that way. I've already been working with Omar Passons. He ran for Board of Supervisors 2 years ago. Didn't get the job, but did get a job as Director of Integrative Services in the County Health and Human Services. We went to Lamar Park a few weekends ago in Spring Valley to meet with residents who've been dealing with homeless encampments. That park's been cleaned out multiple times, tons of trash cleared, hundreds of tents removed. But for a long time, the encampments always came back because there wasn't anywhere else to go. Thankfully now, 304 homeless folks from the unincorporated area are in county-funded hotel rooms. But as long as there are still folks on the streets and in the riverbeds, there's more to do. We've got to solve the now emergency problem, the intermediate or transitional problem, and the long-term need for housing. A tent or a tarp isn't a home, but housing always has to come with mental health and addiction treatment services. We've got to treat the entirety of each individual's needs, and then we'll make a difference.
Thank you. So we're going to stay on that topic for the follow-up question. For attendees, the Housing First model of reducing homelessness calls for providing individuals and families with permanent, affordable housing as quickly as possible before providing services. Steve, I think the next one does go to you, right, Steve?
Yes.
Thank you. Do you support the Housing First model, or is there another model that you prefer?
I don't support the Housing First model. I believe we've got to treat, as I said in my last answer, the entirety of the individual. If you bring somebody into housing, but you don't treat their mental health issues, you don't treat their substance abuse issues immediately, you're not going to be able to effectively turn their lives around. And we've got to look at reforming lives, giving people an opportunity to live the life that they'd like to live. And the only way to do that is to provide wraparound services from day one.
Thank you. Joel, do you support the Housing First model, or is there another model that you prefer?
So I was not a fan of it, but having worked with Brian Mainsheim, he actually worked very hard putting that model together. And he said it was very successful. So I'd like to go back and look at the statistics. I want to help as many people as possible. And with a limited budget, if that takes 90% of the money and only helps 3% of the people, we may not be achievable. I want to look at the best path to help these people and lift them in our community. And so I'm not in favor of one over another. I think once I get there, I'll have much more information available to me, and I want to go out and tour all the facilities. I've toured many as a legislator, but not as a county soup, and so I like to see it all.
Thank you. Okay, Joel, this next one is to you. We're changing topics on to COVID. If you were currently a supervisor, which of the county's policies on COVID-19 would you advocate changing, and why, if any?
I think there needs to be a public debate. I think too many of the decisions are made behind closed doors, and I would have seconded Jim Desmond's motion. I don't know if I'd vote for it or not because I didn't read it and I don't know it well, but I would want that public debate. Even if the motion died or carried, the public would have been part of the debate. And I think it's important when you have a life-altering virus like this, it impacts us so strongly, you need to be at the table. We all need to be at the table. And if we know the facts are clear, I think more people would comply with wearing masks. But if people believe that it's political and not medical, I think that's where you lose folks. And I think that knowledge is power, and we need to be at the table.
Thank you. Steve, if you were currently a supervisor, which of the county's policies on COVID-19 would you advocate changing and why, if any?
This is a dangerous virus. Over 200,000 dead in the United States, over 800 dead in the county. Congregate care facilities should have been buttoned up or bubble wrapped much more quickly. It's been clear from the beginning the elderly are particularly vulnerable. Same goes for Latino and other communities of color. COVID's impact has been incredibly disproportionate to those populations. We absolutely should have had more testing sooner, quicker results, more PPE available for congregate care facilities, for frontline workers, quicker recognition of vulnerable populations. Plus, I believe the county needs to take another look at their economic stimulus program. They received nearly $400 million in CARES Act funding, but only $20.5 million of that went to help businesses with grants. I'd put more money into that program. On the bright side, our hospitals weren't overrun. Our ICUs have maintained capacity. We've had plenty of ventilators. It could have been much worse, but it's not over yet. We're coming into flu season, and I think there's a risk of COVID taking a turn for the worse, though I hope it doesn't.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to move on to another topic. I know any of these topics we could talk for hours, but given the limitations here, we're going to keep jumping topics. Steve, this one goes to you first. What is the county's responsibility in limiting the effects of climate change from greenhouse gases?
Well, the county, climate change is real. If you have any doubt, look at how the Marines are planning for it. They're looking to move their recruit depots from the coast and combine them in a location less likely to be impacted by sea level rise. I'm not going to argue with the Marines. Climate change is real. As far as the county's climate action plan, we need to get everybody at the table. I was pleased that the board voted a week or so ago to abandon further appeals over their climate action plan. It's time to set egos aside and find a path to balance climate protections with the need for new housing. We can get it done. The MSCP, Multiple Species Conservation Program, brought together the building industry, wildlife agencies, environmental groups, the county, the feds, and the result was a plan that protected valuable resources, created environmental protections, and allowed streamlining of permitting. So I think that MSCP process we went through provides a model to get the climate action plan done. We just need the will to do it.
Thank you. Joel, what is the county's...
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay. What is the county's responsibility in limiting the effects of climate change from greenhouse gases?
Well, we don't have a climate action plan, nor does Poway. You know, everyone talks about how passionately they care, and their own city doesn't even have it. So again, if a man promises you the world tomorrow, ask him what he did yesterday. I have supported passing that. I think the county tried 3 times and failed at it. When we don't pass that, we're missing out on all sorts of opportunities with the state. And whether you agree with it or not, it's in our best interest to get on board and move forward with it. I drive an electric car, and you know, one of my issues is traffic. I think a lot of people would be driving electric cars if they weren't fearful that they get stuck in traffic and shut down. So that range anxiety is a big deal. And so I think we should take it seriously. I think we should pass it, and we need to be moving ahead. But I just don't think pretty words are going to fix it.
Thank you. So we're going to stick on that for a follow-up, just to get a little bit deeper. I think you both touched on this, that the supervisors voted not to appeal the court's ruling that its climate action plan is insufficient. What specific ideas do you have to adjust the climate action plan to make it sufficient? And Joel, this one goes to you first.
You know what? I want to sit down. When I first ran for office, I thought I knew everything. Once I got there, I realized I knew nothing. When you're sitting on the board, you're privy to all sorts of inside information. So I'd wait till I got there, but my goal would be laser focused on pushing that through. So I don't know. This is one of those issues that talking to outside groups, people who are experts in the field, I've been told different things, but frankly, I just haven't had the time to really pursue it because I'm not in an elected office.
Okay. Steve, the supervisors voted in July not to appeal the court's ruling that its climate action plan is insufficient. What specific ideas do you have that would help to make it sufficient for making it?
I'm going to go back to the answer that I gave before. The multiple species conservation program that the county put together brought together all the key players. Right now, because there's no climate action plan, that's a de facto moratorium on building throughout the county. That applies not only to single family homes and developments, but also affordable housing. So we've got to get all those people together, the building industry, environmental groups, the county, the feds, wildlife agencies. I believe if we follow the blueprint of the MSCP, we can make progress.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. Steve, this goes to you first. Do you support Sandag's 5 Big Moves plan? Why or why not?
Well, there are some intriguing concepts, but the price tag is an eye-popping $177 billion. To give you some context, for that amount, you could buy 2 Teslas for every single household in the county and still have about $100 billion left over. Now, part of the reason for that price tag is because Sacramento politicians, past and present, haven't undertaken CEQA reform. Regardless, the current draft of the RTP, Regional Transportation Plan, doesn't sufficiently take into account the impacts of the pandemic, for one. New work from home trends, significantly decreased transit ridership. But fundamental to me is we need to keep the promises first that Sandag made nearly 2 decades ago. The 94-125 interchange completion, expanding the 67, if only for public safety. Until and unless those projects come to fruition, there's no chance the public's going to support a tax to pay for future promises. You can't keep taxing people for things that you don't deliver.
Thank you. Joel, do you support Sandag's 5 Big Moves plan? Why or why not?
Absolutely not. It offers nothing to 90% of this district. The city portion, Allied Gardens, that area, it would benefit. But as you move to La Mesa and east, all those people are being paying taxes that get zero value. I would like to look at this in other ways. I did a bill with one of my colleagues from San Francisco, Scott Wiener, and it said that if you had high density, low income houses and you're a half a mile from a trolley stop, they would have to pass the permit within 90 days. And that would help keep the cost down of that property. But these people don't have cars. They need this mass transit to get to work and to have the most opportunities. But we're not going to build that mass transit out to Ramona. We're not going to build it to Alpine. We're not going to build it to a lot of places in the county. It's just not feasible. But yet we continue to try to build high density, low income houses there, dooming these folks to a path where they can't get to work. Some of this is just plain common sense.
Thank you. Joel, this one goes to you first. Do you support the development of new neighborhoods in unincorporated and previously undeveloped areas, for example, Newland Sierra and Lilac Hills?
I supported it. It's not my district. In their portion of the district, they voted for it, and they're the ones that had to live by it. And I don't want Chula Vista or National City or Del Mar dictating what goes on in my neighborhood. If my neighborhood decides that we want it, it should be our decision, not some other community. I don't want somebody forcing onto my community. I believe in community first. And so they had as I understand it, they had a previous vote prior that the district supported it. And I think that if somebody wants to do something in their district, that's why they have a supervisor, and I respect their supervisor's opinion. But I think the notion that other communities can dictate, can you imagine if other communities could tell Poway what they're going to have, how they're going to build it, and where it's going to go? That's not right.
Thank you. Steve, Do you support the development of new neighborhoods in unincorporated and previously undeveloped areas? For example, Newland Sierra and Lilac Hills.
You know, it's got to be on a case-by-case basis. We have to look for places where the infrastructure is there. Number one, I think there are some opportunities along the I-15 corridor, but I too would listen to the community. Community input is critically important, but the other critically important factor is what does the CAL FIRE chief have to say? Is it going to be safe? Is there going to be safe egress in case of a wildfire? We've seen that that is a problem with some of these new developments. If the CAL FIRE chief can't sign off on it and say that it's going to be safe in the case of a disaster, then I'd have a hard time, a very, very hard time supporting it.
Thank you. I see that we do have a panelist for the next session hopping in, so Carla's going to usher Chris out. There you go. And that happened not in the middle of one of your answers. That was perfect timing, Chris. All right. Got a couple more questions here from the official list from the board, and then hopefully we can squeeze in a question or two that's here in the chat. Let's see. Steve, I believe this one goes to you first. Last year, the county supervisors directed staff to locate county-owned property that could be used to temporarily house asylum seekers. D2 Supervisor Diane Jacob voted against this plan. Do you support this plan? Why or why not?
I don't know enough about the plan. I was not familiar with it at the time. I should mention it's a perfect opportunity to talk about the fact that from the time that Supervisor Jacob endorsed me, she has never said, well, where do you stand on this? Where do you stand on that? That has never come up. She endorsed me because of my track record in Poway. You know, asylum seekers is largely a federal responsibility. I think we need to look to them first for some direction and for funding. But, you know, they need to handle their responsibility. The county worked with the state to build some support systems, and important community partners stepped up, like Jewish Family Services. That was necessary because the federal government made a policy change and started really just dumping asylum seekers into the county without making the proper preparations. As supervisor, I'd make sure the county pushes hard for necessary resources for public and private assistance.
Thank you. Joel, last year, the county supervisors directed staff to locate county-owned property that could be used to temporarily house asylum seekers. D2 Supervisor Diane Jacob voted against this plan. Do you support the plan? Why or why not?
Look, I'm going to prioritize our homeless. I'm going to prioritize our veterans. Why is it that it had to come to asylum seekers? And by the way, I've done a lot of bills in support of folks who are religiously persecuted to come to our country. But why do we have to wait for this? Why weren't we taking that level of intensity to our homeless? That's why the homeless keep getting worse. Why aren't we asking these questions so strongly about our homeless vets? We have over 2,000 homeless vets. And yet it's okay that we're not going to go to the extra effort for those folks? Look, this is part of the reason why I'm running. Everyone loves to talk a great game. They just don't want to do it. I want to fix these things. I want to improve our communities and lift people. So no, I would have used this energy initially to help get homeless off the street.
Thank you. Okay, final question from the board and that members have sent in ahead of time. You each, and Joel, this will go to you first. You each have received criticism for a specific incident in the past. Mayor Vaus, in your case, regarding comments that you made about Muslims in America, and Senator Anderson, in your case, regarding comments directed at a woman during a fundraising event. What have you learned from those incidents?
I'm first, right? Keep my mouth shut. I never, I said it, I admitted it, I didn't back off, but I never meant it as a threat. I was talking about something else and it was taken as a threat. I apologized, but I should have never said it. using language like that opened me up for somebody taking it out of context. So, look, lesson learned. Every day I try to be much more thoughtful with my words.
Thank you. Steve, to you, you have each received criticism for a specific incident in the past. Mayor Vaus, in your case, regarding comments you made about Muslims in America, and Senator Anderson, in your case, regarding comments directed at a woman during a fundraising event. What have you learned from those incidents?
I chose my words poorly and recklessly. I'll mention that was before I was in office, but regardless, it was wrong. Supervisor District 2 has a high number of immigrants and refugees, and they've enriched the community and contributed greatly to our economy. But the bottom line was I expressed myself very poorly, and for that, I'm sorry.
Thank you. We do have time for a couple questions from the attendees. So let me spin through here real quick. We're going to go to, do you support, and let's see, Steve will direct this one to you first. Do you support mandatory requirements on wearing masks in the county? And if so, under what conditions would you ease up on that order?
I think I always wear a mask when I go out. It's primarily for those around me, but I've got a 2-month-old grandson, my 6th grandson. I don't want to put anybody at risk, whether it's my grandson or somebody that I come in contact with. So I always wear a mask. Enforcement, I think we need to educate, and only as a very last resort, go to some type of enforcement. People need to understand how serious this disease is. We're coming into a time where we could see a resurgence. It's happening in some states around the country. And science indicates that wearing a mask can cut down on the transmissibility of the disease. So we need to do everything in our power to get everybody to wear a mask to cut down on the transmission of coronavirus.
Thank you. Joel, do you support mandatory requirements from the county for wearing masks? And if so, under what conditions would you ease up on this order?
Well, I think this gets back to what I said before. I don't think that we would have to ticket people if we were more transparent. I don't know of anybody who says, I want to hurt somebody else, at least not in the circles I'm in. But there are people that believe that this is politically focused instead of medically focused. I'm very proud to have the Medical Society of San Diego's endorsement because of my common sense plan moving towards this. But that transparency, being part of the debate so that people know how serious this is and how this helps. In East County, we've had a lot of fires over the years, and our community pulls together all the time to help neighbors. They would pull together again if the county was more transparent and people actually understood what was going on.
Thank you. Okay, we're gonna close on one more question from an attendee. This touches on a topic that we've already discussed regarding transportation. It's going a little bit more in depth. Question is, and Joel, this will go to you first.
Okay.
Highway 67 is still considered one of the most dangerously traveled North County routes. What attention will you give to making it safer for those who frequently travel on it?
Well, I was working on it as a legislator. It is very dangerous, but there's a lot of complications. At one time, they talked about putting a fixed barrier down the middle to make sure that people don't cross the lane and hurt each other. The problem is, during a fire, that's the only way in and out of Ramona. So if you put a fixed lane, it makes it virtually impossible to service them during a catastrophe like Witch Creek or Cedar Fire. So the second part, though, is, the county just took over land to create a parking lot for hiking. I think it's at, and I'm sorry, it's been a long day, I'm struggling a little bit, at Iron Mountain. and yet they haven't done anything with it. So you have people parking all along the street. They're putting people's lives at risk because they haven't developed a parking lot that they said that they were going to do. You know, quit talking about stuff and let's just get stuff done. I'd be riding them to make sure that that was completed so that we're doing everything in our power, not waiting to allow the perfect to get in the way of the good.
Thank you. Steve, Highway 67 is still considered one of the most dangerously traveled North County routes. What attention will you give to making it safer for those who frequently travel on it?
Highway 67 is known as Blood Alley. That's how dangerous it is. In 2004, the Transnet tax promised to expand Highway 67 from Dye Road in Ramona to Mapleview in Lakeside to 2 lanes each direction. That promise has been ignored. I'm committed to completion of that project. I worked with folks at Sandag from both sides of the aisle to amend the budget last year to dedicate $92 million to improve Highway 67, 52, the 94-125 interchange, and other problem areas. When there's a fire in Ramona or Julian or Santa Isabel, 67 turns into a parking lot. People can barely get out, and our Poway firefighters and others need to be able to get in. So Highway 67 should be one of our highest priorities, and I've made it that.
Thank you, and thank you to both for answering our questions. So we're now going to end with closing statements. Let's see, I believe, Joel, you started with opening statements, so Steve, we'll let you begin the closing statements. 2 minutes each, go ahead.
Well, thank you, Amit. Appreciate you putting this together in the Poway Democratic Club. Appreciate you hosting this forum. You know, pardon me if I sound like a broken record, but Poway is the safest city in the county, ranked #1 to raise a family. We've got the best roads, balanced budgets. We pay down pension obligations. We're revitalizing the town center right now with new homes and restaurants and shops. I told you about the $10 million senior and community center we're building, ahead of schedule, under budget, paying cash. We do affordable housing right. In the last 2 years, we've expanded our open space by about 500 acres, and we started with more open space as a percentage of our land mass than any other city in the county. We get things done. All that's come to pass on my watch as mayor, and I truly believe it's a heck of a blueprint to bring to the county. I've already told you about my endorsements from county leaders on both sides of the aisle. I could go on, but I really would encourage you to ask the county Democratic leaders that you know who work with me. Olga Diaz, Mayor Paul McNamara, Chula Vista Mayor Mary Salas, Encinitas Mayor Catherine Blakespeare. I encouraged her to be my vice chair at Sandag. Former Lemon Grove Mayor Mary Sessom, Lemon Grove Council Member Jennifer Mendoza, and many more. They'll tell you I take a collaborative approach to serving with a focus on the servant part of being a public servant. That's the same approach I'm going to take at the Board of Supervisors. I would welcome your vote. I'd encourage you to visit Vaus for supervisor.com, or you can call me. I suspect you know my cell number is on the city website. But again, thank you. Appreciate having this opportunity to visit with you tonight.
Thank you, Steve. Joel, over to you.
I have over 45 local electeds who have endorsed me. I have over 3,000 just ordinary citizens who have endorsed me. I don't brag about the endorsements because this is a job about getting things done. It's about moving the ball forward and lifting our communities and helping the people around us. Look, Steve's your mayor. Either what he's saying is truthful and you have this incredible panacea, or you don't. And if you do, you should vote for him. But I think we can do better. I know that we can do better, and I need your help to do it. I'm going to solve, to the best of my ability, the homelessness. It won't be lip service. We'll do stuff. When I was in the legislature, I could have sat back and voted no all the time, and conservatives will love me just the same. But I want to make a difference in people's lives, and that's what I'm focused on. So if you want to make a difference, then vote for me. because I'm going to change stuff for the better. I'm not going to sit here and talk in platitudes. I didn't get a Grammy for storytelling. I'm just going to tell you the truth. So I'm asking for your vote. My cell number is 619-204-2200. Call me. I'm approachable. I have a community coffee every year when I was your senator. I never turned down a meeting when somebody requested it of me. May not have agreed with you. You may not have agreed with me, but I was open to it because other people sometimes have better ideas than I do. Now, I'll tell you, my wife doesn't agree with me all the time, so I'm not expecting you to agree with me all the time, but I'm trying. And I'm just done with the excuses that keep coming out of local government and state government. When I went up there, I didn't go to caucus for 4 years because the Republicans offered no alternatives. We sent a man to the moon 50 years ago. None of this stuff is out of the reach of solving, but I need your help to do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Joel. So a big thank you to both of you, Mayor Steve Vaus and Senator Joel Anderson, for joining us tonight. As mentioned, we are recording this and we are going to share this with our members and guests and on our Facebook group. So, you know, these questions and your responses will be viewed by many Democrats and NPPs in the area who will be voting. So thank you so much for your time. A reminder to the attendees, the ballots have been mailed out. I received mine today. Many of you are going to receive them, if not already, this week. The Poway Democratic Club is holding a ballot review on Thursday evening. We're going to go over every race and proposition and measure on the ballot, on Poway ballots. So if you are not already on our mailing list, you can sign up at powaydemocraticclub.org and you'll receive the Zoom link for that event. And our next session begins here in about 13 minutes at 8 o'clock, where we're going to have the candidates for Poway City Council, District 2 and District 4. So stick around. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Joel, so much.
Thanks, Amit.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, thank you attendees for hanging in there. And for those who are just joining us, we'll get started in 13 minutes, exactly at 8 o'clock. And if you have questions for the city council candidates while we're asking our questions, go ahead and just type them into the chat. And then at the end, if there's any time left, I will do my best to scan that and squeeze in what I can. All right. Hey, Barry.
Hello,
Great.
how are you?
Hey, I'm doing well. Doing well. Thanks for joining us.
Where's my video? Let's see.
And then, Carla, I think that we admitted Chris Cruz as a panelist, but we're looking for Chris Olps. Sorry, Chris. Hey, Barry. Good to see you.
Nice to see you too.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
You know, I was impressed with you when you came to city council.
Ah, thank you.
He doesn't talk like a crazy person. Maybe these Democrats aren't all that bad.
Well, you know, give us a chance.
Yeah, well, that's why we're here.
Yeah. We'll get started at 8 o'clock. We're just going to get everybody in and get going.
Yeah, that sounds good. I think you had a pretty balanced question and answer session with the county supervisors.
Thank you. Yeah, I hope I didn't scare anybody off.
Oh, I don't think so. I think most every question was right across the plate.
Yeah. Thanks. Phil, good to see you. I believe you're on mute. Chris, good to see you. Hi, Kaylin.
Hello.
Hello, everybody. Phil, I think you're on mute. So we'll get started at 8 o'clock exactly. How's everybody doing tonight?
I'm doing great. Can't wait. Love these debates.
Good.
Enjoy seeing you guys. I love the company. Barry's been a gentleman. Chris is always a gentleman. Kaylin, the more I learn about you, the more I like you. Just to let you know that. Especially when I hear your child's voice in the background. It's so cute. I'll tell you, you always get me laughing.
Well, hopefully they are both asleep. So